Well, he doesn't have a microphone. Go ahead, you can just start. Okay, everyone, I think we're going to get started here in a second. So, welcome to the meetup. It's a pretty packed house, and I'm going to be talking about SEO. My name is Leland Fiegel. My Twitter account is LelandF, and I just tweeted the slides. So if you want to check out my Twitter account to follow along, please do so. So a little about me: I'm a front-end developer. I am the co-organizer, or one of the co-organizers of the WordPress DC Meetup. I run an online WordPress community at wpchat.com, and it's free. If you have any questions afterward, just feel free to sign up, and I'll probably respond pretty soon. And as far as my SEO claim to fame goes, I ranked in the top 3 for WordPress themes.
Which one?
You mean 1 through 3?
No. What was yours?
Oh, mine was it was on themelab.com, and this is like back in the day before pesky sites like WordPress.org kicked me out of that ranking. So yeah, and those who know me know that I never call myself an SEO expert. That's because I really believe that anybody can be an SEO expert with basic knowledge. And if you actually are an SEO expert, I'm not knocking you, because there's a big difference between knowing about SEO and really executing on it. It's a lot of work. So just a little basic SEO history. Back in the day, like in the mid-90s, most people navigated the web through web directories and rudimentary search engines. Basically, webmasters could tell the search engines the keywords they wanted to rank for, and the search engines would be like, okay. And pretty soon, webmasters figured out that they could just have a long list of keywords, even if they weren't relevant to their site, and they could rank for them pretty easily and just get a bunch of irrelevant but high quantity traffic. And it's pretty easy to game, and users kind of preferred the curation of web directories. Then Google came along in the late 90s, I think 1999 it was founded, and they based their algorithm, instead of on keywords that the webmasters defined, they based it on incoming links, and it was a bit harder to game, and they basically destroyed everybody. Even to this day, Google has the vast majority of the market share. If you have a tech-oriented site, it's not unusual to see 99% of your search traffic coming from Google. If you don't have so much of a tech-oriented site, you might see a little bit of Bing, a little bit of Yahoo, a little bit of AOL search in there, but the basic principles stay the same. And the reason why you should care about SEO is because it's basically free, unlimited, targeted traffic. So it's not something that you really want to ignore. Now, after Google launched and used their link-based algorithm, it kind of spawned the SEO industry. So you can break it down into 2 basic parts: on-site versus off-site SEO. And off-site SEO is everything you do away from your site. This could include building links, building your reputation, creating relationships. It could sort of be attending meetups. And you might be thinking that that's not going to actually directly influence your search ranking, but meeting people and kind of coming to these events like this will make it more likely for people to link to you. And that's something that's very heavily weighted in the algorithm. On-site SEO includes creating content, your URL structure, navigation, meta descriptions, title tags, in your design and markup. And again, design is something that stands out as something that won't directly influence your search ranking, but again, having a good design is going to make it more likely for people to link to you. So it's not something that you want to ignore. So just a quick list of things not to do. Number one, and this is a pretty big bullet point, is be spammy. This doesn't just include posting kind of spammy articles on your site. It also has to do with stuff that not necessarily under your control, such as incoming links. So if you have a bunch of incoming links from forum spam, blog comment spam, it can actually hurt you in the rankings. So try to keep an eye on this. And this is actually sort of something that Marissa is going to be covering in the next talk, kind of how to keep an eye on this and kind of prevent problems from happening before they start. Two, this is kind of a brain dead stupid thing to do, but don't try to hide text on your pages. It doesn't really help you that much, and it's something that's going to get you penalized pretty quickly. Now, I remember I was having like a little conversation with somebody about how to trick Google, and basically came up with this idea like that you could have your color contrast set to sort of be the same color, but not quite. And I told him that it's pretty trivial to detect color contrast. And on top of that, Google actually employs a number of human reviewers. So even if you manage to like pull a fast one on Googlebot, you're not going to get past a human reviewer. Number three is cloaking. Now, if you have to ask what cloaking is, you probably aren't doing it. Basically, what cloaking is when you sort of detect traffic coming from Googlebot, you show them one site, and you show another human another site. So something that a little bit more of a benign example is almost what the Wall Street Journal does. You'll notice that on the Wall Street Journal, they're pretty well known for their paywall of articles. So once you kind of click around on Wall Street Journal, they're going to be like, hey, like sign up for like whatever the price, like $4.99 a month. But you'll notice that Wall Street Journal is also listing Google News, and Google News does not let you link directly to a paywall. So you'll notice when you click a Wall Street Journal link from Google, you can actually get the full free version of the article without having to pay. So that's how much Wall Street Journal values search engine traffic. They'll basically change their business model to accept that search traffic because they want to be listed in Google News. Number four, hire sketchy companies. This basically just falls under rule number one. A company that I've seen advertised a lot lately is Fiverr, and pretty much if you're not familiar with it, Fiverr is a marketplace where you can buy things for $5, and a lot of the gigs on Fiverr are basically spam. So if you pay someone $5 on Fiverr to build links to your site, it might help for a little bit, but pretty soon, once Google catches up to you, you're probably going to be penalized. Another kind of SEO scam you should be aware of, you can hire an SEO firm and you can see incoming traffic coming in from search engines, but when you investigate it more carefully, you'll see that it's just random people like in Bangladesh or the Philippines, like manually clicking on links. So it looks like you're getting search traffic, it looks like you're getting results, but in reality, it's just people manually clicking on your links and not really offering valuable traffic to your site. And have a terrible website is something that should go without saying, but it's something you shouldn't do. Again, anything you can do to improve the experience of your site is something that Google is eventually going to reward, whether they admit it or not. And lastly, get hacked. You'll see in this image at the bottom is something you might have seen browsing through search results. These tend not to show up very often, but when they do, they have very low click-through ratios because no one wants to visit something that has a warning like that.
Right.
So stuff to do: have a well-designed website. We kind of covered that already. Create awesome content. And after you create that awesome content, you shouldn't just let it sit there. It's a little bit idealist to think that once you create a really awesome article, that people are just going to magically find you. You really have to promote that content, reach out to people, and try to get them to link to you, try to get them to tweet about you, Facebook you, whatever. Something that is a pretty recent development is Google's. Yeah, as of today. Google just announced they're going to reward mobile-friendly sites and search engines on mobile devices. So it's something that you could have probably seen coming. Like I said, anything that you can do to improve the experience of your users is something that Google is eventually going to want to reward. Along the same lines, you want to have as fast loading a site as possible. You can do that in a number of ways. That's kind of beyond the scope of this talk, but just Google, optimizing WordPress websites for speed if you want to look more into that. And finally, you want to be so ubiquitous it would make Google look dumb if they ever penalize you. Now, this is a more overarching, holistic strategy. You don't want to be completely dependent on search engines for traffic. You want to build up your social media following. You want to build up your email list. You want to make it not sting so much if Google ever, lowered you in the rankings, penalized you, changed their algorithm to hurt you. If that ever happened, you have something to fall back on. And as for some content advice, think quality over quantity. This kind of depends on your audience, actually. For example, BuzzFeed comes to mind as something that has a lot of quantity, a lot of link baity type stuff, and since their business model is basically get as much traffic as possible, it really doesn't matter for them. In most cases, if you're running a business blog, you want to think quality and try to have some semblance of consistency. So it doesn't, I realize that making a blog post once a day is a little overwhelming, but at least try to do once a week, once a month maybe. Don't have 2-year gaps between your blog posts, because that's just not going to look good to anybody. Each time you post a blog article, you want to think of it as like a soldier. So one example is I wrote a blog post for a company that I used to work for. It was about domain hacks. An example of a domain hack would be like ma.tt is a domain hack for Matt. And I basically wrote an article about that, and we noticed that the traffic a few days later, it was actually getting more traffic than the homepage of the website. So we looked into that a little more deeply, and it was getting incoming keywords like how to hack a domain, or like how to hijack a domain. So it wasn't exactly what we were looking for, but again, just keep trying, and eventually something will click. And once you have that kind of baseline of traffic of flowing into you, things are going to go well for you. When you're writing content, try to sound natural and don't obsess over things like keyword density. Again, real people are going to be giving you the most valuable links. You don't want to write robotic content that just sounds stupid. You want to keep in mind alternative wording. A good example of this is how you can refer to a flash drive also as a USB drive and also as a thumb drive. So nowadays, Google is pretty good about synonyms. If you Googled something like best USB drives, you might get an article #1 that says best flash drives. But this is just an example of something to keep in the back of your mind when you're writing content. Another thing that doesn't directly influence search results is how your links appear in social media. Again, someone could come across this in social media and give you an editorial link. So you want to use something called Open Graph. An Open Graph lets you customize how your links will appear in social media. It does a few other things too, but just for simplicity's sake, we'll just talk about how your links appear in social media. So if you tweeted the link to this meetup, you'll notice that meetup.com has a featured image here that doesn't really look good because it's cut off. And it has a little description, a title, a little logo, so you have a little bit of a branding play as well. It also has a link to, I think that's probably an iOS app. So anytime you have a featured image, you're going to see a higher click-through. And again, it's not something that's going to directly influence your search rankings, but it's something that will make you look good to people that will link to you, and linking is good. So finally, how does this kind of tie in to WordPress? And just as a side note, if anyone uses any of these products whose logos are represented in this, make sure you update to the latest version, like now. So if you're not familiar, there's some security updates for each of these released in the past 2 days. So take some time tonight and run your updates if you haven't already. But coincidentally, these are the plugins and products you're going to use to kind of improve your search presence from your WordPress site. So in this slide covers your post title, your post slug, your post headline, and your meta description. So in the bottom graphic here, this is the WordPress SEO by Yoast plugin. And basically, you can set your SEO title. This is what's going to display in the search results. Yet this may not, really affect how you or what number you rank at, but it will make your listing more attractive for when it does show up and increase your click-through ratio. So you always kind of want to make sure this looks attractive. Kind of wrote this SEO title like Kanye West style, but you probably want to think this through a little bit more. You have the post headline, and then you have the post slug. And you'll notice that I'm using the my flash drive example from before. You always want to try to diversify your keywords. So notice how in my SEO title I have thumb drives. In my post headline, well, I also have thumb drives. Imagine that's flash drives instead. And in the post slug, I have USB sticks. So those are 3 different ways to say the same thing. You can never really anticipate what your visitor is going to type, but when you diversify your keywords like this, no matter what they type, there's a greater chance of them coming to you. Also, another feature provided by the WordPress SEO by Yoast plugin is the open graph that I kind of covered in this slide here. So open graph is, this just says Facebook, 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 but it can be potentially used by any social network as an open standard. So this is how you customize how your link appears in Facebook, whenever the link is shared, or Twitter, or whatever. Something else that WordPress does to kind of make things easier for you is canonical URLs. So for example, something WordPress started doing recently is having paged comments. So when you have, let's say, 3 pages of comments, your URL might be leland.me/https:/discourse/comment-page-1. And this isn't really that good because you have multiple links or multiple URLs with the exact same content on it. The canonical URL basically tells Google that this is the primary URL, and this is something that WordPress does automatically out of the box. You don't need any plugins to do it for you. You just need a theme that was made in the past like 5 years, or a theme that uses the WP headhook, which it should be using anyway. Something that you can do with an SEO plugin is add a no index tag to archive pages. So I have a screenshot of a paged archive. And the reason why you don't want these to show up in search results is because you want your visitors to be directed directly to the article. You don't want them to be directed to a page and then have them click again to see the full article. And on top of that, Google doesn't always have the most up-to-date index. It's possible the article that they were looking for that was cached in the Google result is actually not on page 12 anymore. So you want to set no index to paged archives for sure. Depending on the site, you may want to set no index on category archives, monthly archives, and things like that.
Tags?
Yeah, tags as well is another example. Oh, that's it. Questions? Yep.
Is Google helping people who go to SSL certificates on their site?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about that. That's actually something else that is something you should do. So Google kind of uses their influence to kind of force webmasters to do things they should have been doing already. It's a good idea to have your entire site loading over HTTPS. Some people are kind of afraid that that might affect this rule, the fast loading, but there is something called Speedy, spelled SPDY, that will kind of optimize your secure connections to make them load faster. And this probably isn't something you're going to find on a shared, like a standard shared web host. You're either going to need to set it up yourself on a dedicated server or VPS, or you're going to need a managed WordPress host that supports Speedy. So you can have a secure website and a fast loading website at the same time. So yeah, to answer your question. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little about you had the Yoast up there,
right?
The keyword entry.
Focus keyword.
Yeah, tell me about that. I mean, should those be phrases too, or just one word, or do you put a bunch of words, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah,
and how does it affect?
In my opinion, I wouldn't worry too much about this focus keyword. I think the idea behind this feature in the plugin is to kind of set your keyword density to a normal density. It's basically just making sure you don't underuse your keyword or overuse it. If you write naturally anyway, I never set this focus keyword.
Really? Is that what determines the yellow, green, and red light?
Yeah, there's actually a I honestly can't stand that thing. There's actually a plugin that gets rid of that. But what
but they're measuring the rest of your article based on that keyword to see if you're lining up with it, or?
I'm honestly not even sure what it is. All I know is that it's not something that I want to pay attention to. If you just write naturally, don't obsess over keyword density, like you'll be fine. Yep.
A few months ago, we had an issue which you just mentioned, which is we suddenly had a whole bunch of conversions, form fills, from people in North Africa, Middle East, Pakistan, India, which is not our target market.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I still don't know what was going on. How was that happening, and were they getting paid? I wasn't spending any money on that. And,
it's hard to say what was happening without kind of delving in deeper to your access logs. It could be any number of things. It could just be somebody kind of running a bot against your site to see if there were any exploits on it. It might not have anything to do with SEO. It's hard to say, basically, but it's not something that I would worry too much about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had also the same problem about 3 weeks ago. Most of the loggers on the site were just Chinese. I didn't understand anything already. So I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's probably something related to security. Just a bunch of people scanning your site to see if there's some easy entry point. It probably doesn't have anything to do with SEO.
Does it need to transfer into another domain or something like this, which is a little bit stronger? Or?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I mean, if you transfer the whole site into another domain which is a little bit stronger than the other one, does it make a difference, or?
Probably not. I mean, it's something that probably happens to every site out there. It's they're just bots scanning across every site. So moving it to another site, it might throw them off the scent for a little bit, but it'll probably pick back up again soon.
Thanks.
Are there any subtle differences between a responsive site and what Google's looking for in the mobile criteria?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal responsive site isn't just something that looks good on your phone. It's something that's also optimized for your phone. So I actually talked about this in my responsive design talk like a couple of years ago, but you want to make sure you're not loading really large assets. That's something that would be way too big for a phone anyway. You just want to make sure just things are loading as fast as possible on mobile, not just using some media queries and making it look nice. So to answer your question, yeah, there could be subtle differences between are you talking about like an M.dot site versus a responsive site?
No, I'm talking about a really optimal responsive site that loads very quickly because optimized everything for.
Yeah, in that case, then it would be fine. I'm sure it would, get a mobile-friendly rating from Google.
Any differences for language sites?
So for language sites, that's a good question. I'm not really sure about multilingual sites and what the best practices for those are. I'd have to get back to you about that. Yep.
How's your keyword process go? Like, how do you know what keywords you want to look for? Like for me, I usually use Google AdWords to find targeted keywords. Do you have an alternative way of doing that, or?
I honestly do the exact same thing. Just use Google AdWords keyword planner, something like that is what it's called. So that's probably the best data source for generating keywords like that.
But that's more PPC oriented.
Yeah, exactly. It's designed for PPC, but it could also apply to non-PPC stuff as well. It's the same the same data, I guess. Yep.
How's Google processing those webmasters that kind of get different URLs to target different keywords, but basically the same person that owns those domains?
Oh.
Even if they don't link to one another.
Can you repeat the question?
For instance, if you wanted biotechnology, San Diego, and you've got another keyword that was kind of related, you had 2 or 3 keywords, you bought the domain names, and they would set up a site.
Oh, are you talking about exact match domains?
Yeah, something like that. You have kind of a network.
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, it was asking about exact match domains. So for example, if you have the domain biotechsandiego.com and biotechlosangeles.com, could those be kind of utilized to as a network to generate traffic for a kind of money site, I guess?
Yeah, so I know of people that do that. I wanted to know, is that effective or is it penalized?
It probably is effective. It's not something that Google would be very happy about, but I can't deny that it probably would be effective. It's something you kind of want to keep under wraps. You don't want to kind of link it back to the main site. Now we're kind of getting into more gray hat SEO rather than white hat SEO. But yeah, it probably is for now, but it's something that you don't want to really broadcast. Yep.
A little bit, not so much about mobile content. So let's say you're a restaurant, you might not even have a website, and you're going to rank high in the local product or the way that the kind of mobile, local aspect approaches SEO.
Right. So he was asking about if you're a restaurant, you don't necessarily need a website. You can just set up a Google local listing and kind of rank that way. You could do that. Just me personally, I don't like the idea of putting all my eggs in that basket. I'd rather also have a website that can be linked from.
And I didn't want to necessarily say need a website. I was just to expand on the local.
Right. I mean, it's not completely necessary. You just have to be aware of the risk of putting all your eggs in that basket. But to answer your question, that yeah, for a local business, you know, it's basically like the yellow pages where you don't really need a website.
What about like, you know, like with restaurants, you always have the menus in PDF format,
Right.
you know, which is just annoying and whatnot. How does that, like, you know, let's say you have your, the sort of the main source of your content in some other different format like that. I mean, Google doesn't really index PDF, right? Or most of the PDFs are not built in such a manner that they're like index friendly, right?
Right. I'm sure Google is working on a way to kind of scan PDF files to extract text content, but yeah, ideally you would want to make it easy for them. Right. And you know, everybody else, it's kind of sometimes when you view a PDF on a mobile phone, you have to shrink it down, and it's not the best experience for mobile users. So ideally, yeah, you would want a text-based menu.
But I'm sorry, like what I meant to ask is, like, for example, like, you know, you have like keyword news, which is like something that Google had originally adopted and then they abandoned it and then they picked it up again like a couple of years later. So, you know, we had to scramble and like retroactively apply this tag into the thing. Like, how often? Like, I mean, that's kind of like the tail leading the dog, you know, as far as that. So how, like, you know, you said not to put your eggs in all in one basket, but in a situation like that, so how close should you be, you know, like with this new release of like this mobile-friendly sort of algorithm and all that? Like how much energy should you focus on, let's say, what Google does versus, you know, other engines or whatnot?
Right. I mean, like, my opinion on that is you should be kind of proactive instead of reactive about it. So Google said things like make your site fast, load over HTTPS, make it mobile friendly. Like, these are 3 things that you should have probably been doing anyway. They're just kind of forcing your hand to do it, and now people are kind of scrambling to keep up. So if it's something that, you know, is going to be a positive experience for your users, just do it anyway. And if Google happens to make a blog post saying like, oh, we're going to rank mobile friendly sites higher, then you have nothing to worry about. It already is mobile friendly.
But so pretty much you gotta like just keep your finger on Google's pulse just to see what they're doing. And
basically. So, yeah, a lot of questions. Yep.
So how important is WordPress's internal taxonomy to your SEO ranking?
Internal taxonomy, like,
you know,
like
categories and tags and.
It really depends on the site. Like, for example, like an e-commerce site, you might have like this chair have a taxonomy of color, white, base, metallic, something like that. It's probably helpful to kind of optimize those index pages for an e-commerce site. Yeah, it's something that is probably dependent on the site rather than something that's just inherently important. Like I said, sometimes it makes more sense to just no index category archives and monthly archives and things like that. Yep.
Question. We're currently working on a redesign project, and where the URL structures are changing. So I know that the Google Webmaster Tools can handle some of the 301s and 404s. What's the best way to handle that? Like when you know that the IA and a lot of the web pages are going to be changing.
Right.
What do you think the best approach of handling that when you're doing a redesign project?
I wouldn't go into Google Webmaster Tools because you're kind of neglecting people that might have bookmarked your site, and if they go back to that bookmark, they might reach a 404. Right. So you probably want to set up your 301 redirects server side.
Okay.
So that way, like, no matter how somebody say that URL before, no matter what search engine it is, the 301 status tells everybody that it's been permanently redirected to the new URL.
Okay, and I think that's the approach that we were going to say. We just wasn't sure if we should use the Webmaster Tool approach.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it can't hurt to kind of double check on things in Webmaster Tools. I would definitely focus on server-side 301 redirects first. Yeah.
I've had an idea about taking it, maybe either copywriting or trademarking certain logos or other forms of identity, such as product names, so that they're unique terms. How do the search engines look on stuff like that? Like, if you have something that's, I don't know, a drum machine called the MX480, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of proprietary, right? So you can eliminate your competition, but do you spike the search engine that way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Google could care less about intellectual property. For like a unique name, like having like a bunch of letters and numbers afterward, like it's probably going to be unique anyway. But I doubt that Google is, you know, querying the USPTO or something like that to check if it's trademarked. It's not something that I would focus on if you're just concerned about SEO. You probably want to trademark a product name for other reasons, but SEO would be one of them. Yep.
So I have a question that's related to site navigation as it relates to SEO. We have a site that's just grown up and just pages after pages, and we haven't really redesigned the navigation. We're just embarking on a process to do that. What SEO considerations, if any, should be taken into consideration in the navigation?
Navigation. It really depends on the site. Like how many pages you have, for example. 100. Oh wow. That's a good question. I would. This isn't something I covered in this presentation. You probably want to set up breadcrumb navigation. So it's like home, subpage. So that way, users can kind of easily navigate through related pages. Again, like just as long as you have a navigation structure that makes sense, Google and other search engines can probably figure it out from there.
It still penalize you for like H1s if you have more, like a bunch of H1s and like H2s, you know, like you used to like sort of count your H2s, H3s, H4s and all that.
Yeah, like I really wouldn't worry too much about counting H1s and H2s. Some people say that you should only use one H1 per page. Like I don't think it makes that much of a difference, to be honest.
Right.
Right. Yep.
No. Regarding the taxonomy and the navigation, someone told me that I have categories, and then I have like sections. Let's put it in too much, and categories under, like, so people and then heroes. So my URL is the domain name / people / heroes, and they told me that the SEO is worse on that, because if someone searches for heroes, they're not searching for people heroes. Is that, would you say that had any merit?
I mean, maybe a little bit. It's not something that's probably not a big deal.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir, ma'am. It's good.
Business? I mean, like a religious?
No. Because I love it. Yeah, but we're just gonna share that.
Okay. So you're just like a content aggregator?
Hi everyone, we're going to take about a 5-minute break, so grab another drink, get some pizza, there's still some chips. We'll be back in a second.
Yeah, maybe another beer while it's going up.
So you guys are running on
Hey, welcome. Glad you made it. Huh? It was good. A little tiring, but it's always good.
Well, that too has actually become much more responsible. Yeah.
It's actually been,
I think what that is,
So would it be good? Well, it would be better than the site that is.
All of 2013 was fantastic. We got fantastic traffic. July 2013 went up and last 2014 to come back. Oh, I know, yeah, no, it's
everyone get back to their seats. We're going to get started in 1 minute. All right, you're actually getting started again. Hello. Hi. All right, so hopefully you had a nice moment to, get a new drink and all those things. My name is Beth Soderberg. I'm one of the co-organizers of WordPress DC, and I'm here to introduce Marissa Goldsmith, who I met at a different meetup. You should go to more than just this one. A few months ago, so this one is awesome. And we were critiquing a website, and Marissa I had never met her before, but every single thing she said was spot on and totally constructive. So I thought that since she is an independent data and analytics expert, which I clearly saw demonstrated at this other meetup, that it would be a great opportunity, since we're having an SEO theme, to have her come and share a little bit about what she knows with you. So that being said, here's Marissa.
Hi there. So today I'm going to talk about not what Leland talked about, which was how to make your SEO better, but how to detect when it starts falling apart, and so you can take the measures you need to make sure it's better. My area of expertise is really Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, and so I'm going to show you how you can use Google Analytics to find the problems before they get too big, including some of the problems that people brought up here during the question and answer period. I'm going to go very quickly over the various reasons why your SEO could potentially suffer. Some of them were brought up in the last session, so I'll go through it a little bit quickly. This is the Google changes something. We talked a little bit about how today is the mobile get on. That's what they're actually calling it in the hashtag, changing the algorithm. So Google might change something, and suddenly your SEO could plummet for something. You're not doing anything horribly wrong. Things are changing, and something could go wrong. Okay. That's it. That's the mobile get on. There's a hashtag. You should follow it on Twitter. You might be changing something. Someone talked about, changing IA, the website redesign, rebranding. Even things as simple as a CMS migration. If it's going to change your URLs, it could have a problem with your SEO. I put in there something I call new marketing efforts, and that's not really a bad thing. But if you have a mini site and someone goes all out on the SEO for that mini site, and then the campaign ends and it goes away, you've sort of lost what I like to call all your SEO street cred with that. So there are things that can cause your SEO to go down. And then this is the other one. Someone else did something bad. Has anyone ever received one of these emails before? Does anyone know what that is? Okay. This is an email. I had a client who received this email. This client had a Tumblr blog, but the Tumblr blog, and it was a well-known nonprofit. They had a separate blog, They had a Tumblr blog, but they used their own domain name. So their domain was not www.mydomain.tumblr.com. It was its own domain. And they got this letter basically saying they were being delisted pretty much immediately. We went to the website, we looked at the blog, we couldn't find anything wrong, everything seemed normal. It had been around a really long time. Went through the first 2 to 3 months, the most recent 2 to 3 months of blog posts. There was nothing nefarious. They had not themselves linked to anything unusual. So we just asked for reconsideration, and we got rejected. And we got rejected twice. Finally, I did a slightly deeper dive to discover they never, I'm not an expert on Tumblr, but they basically never turned off any comments ever. The blog was very old, and so some link builders were putting their own links into the comment section of blog posts that were 3 and 4 years old, super old blog posts, and those were getting caught. So we immediately just turned off comments altogether, resubmitted for consideration, and it was fine, and then moved to a WordPress blog where there's more controls over that kind of thing. But that was someone else doing something bad. You could have the people doing the click links and the scamming. That can be a problem, but that's one of the things that's something that can happen. And so I'm going to talk about Google Analytics a little bit. Does everyone more or less have Google Analytics, even if you're not using it actively? How many people use it actively, like once a month? They're at least in there once a month. So these are some tools you can use in Google Analytics that can help you find the problem, or if you already know you've got a problem, ways that you can delve in and investigate. And I want to point out by saying, like, I could spend an hour on each of these slides if you wanted me to, so I'm going through, I've got like 10, 15 minutes left. If anyone wants to talk to me about any of these specific things afterwards, I'm happy to, but I might talk your ear off and you may not. The first thing I'm going to talk about is annotations. Does anyone use annotations in their Google Analytics? Okay, that's not enough. Annotations is very simple. It is simply a little spot on the timeline that says something happened on this day. When I look at my analytics, I will know that something happened on this day. So everyone's homework for tomorrow is to go home and put an annotation in your Google Analytics saying that today was mobile get on. Because you will be able to look and you will be able to see exactly what happened as a result of that. I'm going to go home today, not only am I going to put that down, but I'm also going to put down that I came to this event. And then I'm going to see what my website traffic looks like after having come to this event. There is one sort of pain in the butt thing about this, is that you can't do it in the future. So you can't actually do that today. You have to do it tomorrow. Because I knew about the mobile stuff a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I went and I tried to put in the annotation, and it doesn't let you. You can't do it in the future. You can only do it in the past. And so here's a little quick tutorial on how to make annotations. So if you log in to Google Analytics, here's the first screen you see, right? There's a little, it's very hidden. See that nice little arrow right there? You're going to click on that arrow. It still doesn't look like much. If you've created annotations already, you'll see something. But if you don't, there's that nice little create annotations. And then you can start making annotations. You can share them, meaning anyone who has access to this view can see them. You can keep them private so that only your username and login can see them. If you do this a lot, like I know some clients who do every email they send out, they make an annotation, but you can star certain ones so you can see the most important big things you do versus the smaller things you do. And it'll really make a difference when you're trying to figure things out. The only other complaint I have is I feel like they're a little bit small. I really wish Google would do something with the UI to make it a little bit more obvious. You can do that, and that it's a little bit bigger, but it's immensely helpful. It helps future staff know about things that you've done, not just for SEO, but one time I put a filter on something. I put a filter on internal IP traffic, and then like 3 months later, someone was complaining that direct traffic went down. And I was like, well, look at the annotations. You can see I put a filter on it now. Every time someone is in your office, it doesn't lose a hit. So those are annotations. The next thing I want to talk about are segments. Does anyone use advanced segments at all or filters?
Segmentation.
Segmentation. So overall, segmentation is about the most important thing you can do in analytics, period. But if you're trying to make sure what's happening with your SEO and to see that everything is okay, specifically, this is a chart that shows all traffic versus search traffic. And if you want to make sure, that if your SEO is in good condition, that you overall have a pattern that follows your overall traffic. Now, you can see here, there's a bit of a spike here. Because of annotations, I happen to know they sent out an email that day, so their email traffic spike. But overall, this is a pretty healthy looking line. If say this stayed down for a while, or one of these stayed down for a while, this is traffic that's coming from search, and you know something may be wrong. And so this is a search segment, and this is really easy to make. Another neat thing about search segments is once you add the segment, you can put it onto any report in Google Analytics, not just this main timeline. You can put it on your conversions report, anything at all. And it's super easy to use, and it's super easy to apply. So here's how you would apply a search segment. So here you are, you're logged in, here's your dashboard. Right there at the top, there's this little add segment button. Okay. There's a billion different ways to find this particular segment. I always just go up there and type in search. If you use it a lot, you can also star it. It's built into Google. You don't have to create a new segment. If you want to talk about creating segments, I'm happy to talk about ways to create very complex advanced segments. But this is a segment that's already built into Google. Okay. You just click that, you click apply, and there you go. Okay. And this line is going to look a little different for everyone. There are some organizations I work with where 75% of their traffic comes from search. There are some where it's significantly less, where it's either all direct or more referrals.
Or PPC.
PPC. I work with a lot of nonprofits, so they have some PPC, but it's not all their PPC.
What is PPC?
Pay-per-click. Oh. The next thing I'm going to talk about is alerts. Alerts is something that's been around in Google Analytics for a long time, but I think it's had a hard time catching on because something else. I'll give a warning about alerts. Alerts are only as good as the amount of times you get them. So I'm going to talk about setting up alerts. Alerts are something you can receive an email or a text when there is a change in your traffic. So what I like to do is I like to create an alert I call search dip. I would vary based on the organization or the company what I would put in here. But this one that I'm making right here says, I want to know if over the course of a week, the medium of organic search or organic medium decreases by 25%. And if that happens, I'll get an email or a text message. So if you're not the kind of person that can really go in here every day or every week or even every month, you can get an email saying that there's something the matter. I'll tell you there is no ideal number that I would tell you to put in here because the very first time I did this, I was very excited. I was like, oh, I'll get these emails and alerts. And so I wanted to know every day if I dipped by 25%. And you know what happened? I got an email like every other day because it would go up, and it would go down, and something good would happen, it would go up, and then it would go down, and an alert that you get every day. Bad alert. So I would start by making it a little bit high, see how often you get the emails, and when you're really getting a problem, like I said, I like usually at 25%. It's generally my point of thumb, my rule of thumb. And as in many things in Google Analytics, there are a lot of ways to get to these making alerts. They have navigation all over the place, and they keep changing it. It's been around for a long time, so the way that I get to it is probably different than the right way. But if you're sitting here and you're logged in, you're in your reports. You go to Overview. There's Intelligence Events, Overview. Also, by the way, if you didn't know, Google comes with its own set of intelligence events. So you can get alerts when people from New York are more coming to your website than they usually do or something like that. It's pretty easy. So then this little, I'm sorry, I keep pointing at my computer like you can see my finger. This little tab piece will come up, and you want to click on Custom Alerts. And then you want to click New Alert. If I had more alerts in here, it would show all of the ones that I have. And then that's the page I was just showing you, and you could create the alert. And like I said, you can set them up for text messages. I would despise it if Google sent me text messages, so I never set it up that way. But I get emails. So that's alerts. Now the next thing I want to talk about is not actually a Google Analytics product, and it was brought up in the previous conversation. I want to talk a little bit about Webmaster Tools. If you're actively working in SEO, I think you should have a Webmaster Tool set up. And when you set up Webmaster Tools, you can somewhat integrate it into Google Analytics. And I like to do that just so that I don't have to be jumping between two tools to be looking at things. So this is what Webmaster Tools can show you. It can show you what your content keywords look like. It basically shows you what Google sees when it's looking at you. So there's some keywords for mine. But what you can do is then you can go and you can put that, this is from another client, so I blurred out the keywords there. You can put this into Google Analytics, so you can see it in a Google Analytics chart form. You can use a lot of the tools that were within Google Analytics. It's limited, it's not as advanced as the rest of Google Analytics, but like I said, it's a nice way to see the data without having to log into something else. And because you all are avid WordPress users, I would just highly recommend when you're going to set up Webmaster Tools to just follow the instructions that are on the WordPress site. In some cases, you might have to update a meta tag. Not all cases, and I'll explain that. And in which case, you don't want to be like messing with themes unless you're comfortable with that. But if you created a Google Analytics site and then you create Webmaster Tools with the same login, you can pretty easily link the two up without having to do much more than that. And the way you do that is you go to the property settings, and oops, sorry. And all the way at the bottom, there's a Webmaster Tools setting, and you can link up your Webmaster Tool account to the Google Analytics account. Those are the 4 things you can do. And I'm sorry I went through them very quickly. Like I said, I'll take any questions.
You'll get them for sure.
Quick question. So like, what about, so using all these tools, what about like funneling into like a certain page? Like, I know you said you deal primarily nonprofits, but what about like, let's say an e-commerce site or something where you've got various campaigns like.
You can set up goals in Google Analytics, and that can show you a funnel if you feel like your site really has a structure where you expect most people to start on page 1 and then go to page 2 and then go to page 3 and then go to page 4.
Right.
The one thing I will say about funneling is it's just a way of taking the data that's already in Google Analytics and making it pretty looking in a funnel. It's not actually extra data. It's just taking the page views and doing calculations on them.
Right, but I mean taking that, sort of like leveraging that to via SEO to sort of optimize that.
Well, what you can do is you can use that advanced segment search, and you can see how many people. Actually, I don't have it set up right now, but if you go to the if you go to the conversions chart and you get the table, there's something also in Google Analytics, which again I can talk for a while, called the secondary dimension. If you make a secondary dimension on that of the default channel grouping, I'm sorry, big word.
Take it offline.
Yeah, you'll be able to see that. You can see how many conversions are coming from search as opposed to other places. Nice. But it's that segment. That's the segment, and you can create segments based on search, so you can see what anyone specifically on what their top landing pages are, what conversions what they're converting highest at, and it does actually matter for nonprofits because we do have donation pages.
Right.
So.
When you're setting up more advanced Google Analytics setups for example, nonprofit clients or clients you have, what's the biggest thing that surprises them when they have more access to that data?
I think a lot of times the biggest thing that surprises them, and this actually goes back to SEO, is that the homepage is actually not the most important page. Especially with SEO, the homepage is, ever changing. It doesn't really get indexed pretty regularly. So that's actually a pretty big one. And a lot of times we'd actually use that kind of information before a redesign so that we can make a decision, because a lot of times, I worked at a consulting firm for a while, and it was like, we spend 30 hours designing the homepage, and then we spend 6 hours designing this subpage, and all these subpages, but the homepage is always like, there. And when you go and you look at that data and you discover that the homepage is actually not the most important page on the site, you actually might decide to invest a little bit more time in some of your some of your landing pages.
Yeah, I have a quick question. In the beginning of your slideshow, you were talking about how your SEO or analytics can change when you do a website redesign. We recently switched over from an awfully terrible website that was like WordPress was really old to a really nice, fresh user experience, and through that, the same traffic was hitting it. The bounce rate jumped to 75%, and it was at 7, and the sessions for
Did you say your bounce rate was at 7?
It was.
Okay.
Before.
And don't take offense to this. I'm going to say that bounce rate was wrong, and there was probably a technical reason why your bounce rate is at 7. Was at 7? That is unheard of.
Yeah. Well, I just took over the project.
Okay.
And then So he was like, what's wrong? Like, it's now at 75%. I was like,
That is 75% to me seems perfectly normal.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell a quick little story about that 7% bounce rate. I had a client who said the same thing, who says our homepage is awesome. It has a bounce rate of like 4% or 5%. And I looked at the homepage, and it turns out they were loading they were loading some content from an iframe.
Okay.
And so what that means is, so a bounce, does everyone know what a bounce is? So bounce is, I came to the site, I didn't do anything else, and I left. And Google only knows that based on things hitting it. You know, I hit the site. So what happens is someone comes to the homepage loads, Google gets a little ping saying someone came to the homepage, one page, so far a bounce, and then the iframe would immediately load underneath it, ping the site, and say, oh, someone went to a second page. And so their bounce rate completely plummeted. That's one of the many reasons why your bounce rate would be really low. And there are mathematical ways you could figure out how that happened if you really wanted to get deep into it and know what your real bounce rate was. But I would say that the answer is your bounce rate was wrong.
Yeah, that's what basically I took over this awful website.
Yeah.
Like, they freaked out immediately. I was like, I don't know. Maybe you should.
Back onto that, we had something really similar happen on a very old client that discovered. It turned out they were embedding Google Analytics in both the header and the footer. This was years ago, but that basically tanked their bounce rate. So they thought that they were having this huge jump in it. In reality, they just fixed their technical problem.
But I would say is if you run a normal website, meaning not an intranet, not a site that requires a login, and you have a bounce rate of less than 20%, there's probably something strange. Okay?
Yeah, can you talk some HTML structure and specifically things like only having an H1, like one place on your site, or having all your pages in H2?
What I would say about HTML structure is that it is still considered like on the list of factors. I think long ago it's sort of been relegated to the back burner of factors. I think it's important to have H1s and H2s, not just for SEO, but because it gives your site a visual hierarchy and it lets you do a lot of other neat programming things that you couldn't do otherwise. But as the question from before of, is it bad to have more than one H1 or, a bunch of H2s, or what if they're out of order? I don't think it matters all that much. Not so much that you would actually be able to see a real difference.
I want to make a comment about the H1 that for compliance, it does make a difference.
It makes a huge difference. I like talking about 508 compliance too.
So as you mentioned today, is Mobigeddon or Mopocalypse, depending on your preference. And Google stated when they announced that this was going to be coming that this affected mobile search only, but do you believe that it's affecting desktop searches as well, or will in the future?
I don't think it is now, because I think it would be too crazy. I think a lot of people would get scared. I come from a background of just like wanting everything to be good and pure, and so my feeling is that if you have made a good, nice, responsive website that's just doing everything right for the user, you'll do better in Google everywhere. And so when people are like, oh my God, should we like make an MDOT site right now or do some sort of strange hacky thing so that like if someone gets to a non-mobile friendly page, it takes you to a mobile friendly page that's not the same. I would say that's no to any of that, because when you start hacking things, Google figures out pretty quickly when you're hacking them. And then you'll be penalized more for trying to fix the problem in a bad way than just sort of waiting it out until you're ready to fix it in the right way.
What about like, all like in the header, you have all the includes, like you're invoking Java, jQuery, or, you're pulling like let's say you have other libraries that you're pulling from other sites and all that. How does that play a role in, aside from load times, because obviously that's going to affect load times and all that.
I think it mostly just affects load time.
So load time is the only concern there, so.
That would be the only concern I would have. One thing that I use pretty regularly now, and I don't know if anyone else does, I use Google Tag Manager now. It's not so much for like the JavaScript libraries and whatnot, but if you have a lot of double-click ads and PPC codes and tags everywhere, it's a better way of managing it in general, and then you're not and then you're using it with Google in a way that Google wants you to use it, and every time you do that, Google's gonna like you a little bit better. So I like to use Google Tag Manager for those kinds of things that you're adding on like that.
Okay.
Nobody's asked this question yet, but there's always a suspicion that you get more points from Google if you're using Google Plus compared to the other social sites. What's your feeling about the importance of Google Plus versus?
So I don't think your website would necessarily be getting more credit. I will say that this is just the anecdotal evidence, is that if I'm searching for something, or especially a person, and that person happens to have a Google Plus site along with everything else they have, that does come up first. But I don't really know that's the case.
Also, like when you do have a Google Plus, it'll add the author right next to your Google search engine organic search. So you actually do come up a little higher, and you come up as a credible author rather than like some just regular stuff. So it does add some value to it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll hang around for a little bit if anyone has anything else.
I'll self-appoint myself as the closer. Okay, great. We're sort of in transition, as you guys have noticed this last few months. Thank you so much. No, I can yell. The microphone's not very loud. Can everybody hear me okay? No, you can't. That guy. Okay, there it is. It's loud. So we get a round of applause again for Scott and Chief. So first thing we got,
and my Leland, I will post these tonight on Twitter. I haven't done so already. What's your Twitter tag? MJ Goldsmith.
And all this information is on the Meetup page as well, along with the stream and lovely photographs. Let's see what we got. We always do the thing. Mason's still got this, but I don't think he's here tonight. Who's hiring? Let's start there. Okay. Who's looking for work? God has spoken. Who's looking for work first? I actually am. Hi, my name's Casey. I'm a freelancer. I'm always looking for new projects and stuff. If you're looking for a retainer guy, or I'm looking for typically like new plugin projects for like 3 month stints or so. So it's kind of selective, but hit me up online. Talk to me at the meeting or whatever else. Okay, anybody else?
I'm Marissa Goldsmith. I'm also a freelancer, and I'll do any work for with Google Analytics and data analysis and implementation as well. All the stuff we talked about.
Awesome. Anybody else looking for work? Okay. Hiring. Russell, you should start off.
Yes, just go right there. Yes. I'm Adam. I'm at Leland, one of the fastest growing tech startups in DC. We're looking for a marketing manager to do a lot of our content, white papers and things like that. And also we're hiring business development people if that interests you or anybody you know.
Yeah, go around there.
My name is Taylor Lovett. I work for a company called Tier 1 Computers.
What?
We're looking for web developers, looking for designers, project managers, account managers. We are a distributed team. We have employees all around the world. If anyone's interested, please see me after.
That was 10up.com. It's 10up.com. Scott, go ahead. Or, yeah.
I believe we're looking for front-end people, right, Kat? Can you give us some detail?
We are.
Stand up, Kat from Chief.
We're looking for a front-end developer at Chief with experience in WordPress, Drupal, open source content management systems in general, and we're always hiring smart people. So talk to Scott or me if you are a smart person.
If you're really smart, talk to her.
Just a quick question on that, actually. What's front-end dev mean? Is it in like JS frameworks or like CSS? Or?
It's more so we can be flexible with working with content management systems. So people can do TPL updates, CSS, preferably, obviously, get experience and some JavaScript experience.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Both of you, one of you, go ahead.
The Foundation Center in DC is putting together a panel, not-for-profit, big, small, international. And on this panel, we're looking for people who can talk about social media and how to use websites in a not-for-profit kind of way. And I've got the contact here. If anybody's interested, I'll give you the contact.
Yeah, go ahead, right in front.
Yeah, I'm looking for some WordPress freelance developers for some projects that I need to put up on that. Mostly, not just plugins, but like old dev websites.
Okay. Did you have? You did raise your hand. I'm not sure if that was. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I am organizing a hackathon with a few other folks, and our goal is to have some actual projects that might actually help real organizations like nonprofits for those at the hackathon to work on. So if you have or know of any such needs, come find me.
Right next to you, yeah.
Excuse me, I was getting back. I'm Henry with Beekeeper Group. We're looking for dev, full stack, freelancers as well as front end, WordPress, Drupal, or Joomla. I know, scary word. Go ahead and come talk to me, and love to talk to you.
In the back, go ahead.
Hi, Ian from Red Edge. We help nonprofits, trade associations, things like that, work on issues like criminal justice reform, NSA spying, or instant, things like that. We're looking for fun and smart people. Really care what your existing expertise is, and expect fun and smart and engaged. So, Ian, Red Edge.
I have Adam work at Agency Q. We're looking for open source developers, so specifically WordPress, but occasional Drupal, unfortunately. But if you know either of those, let me know.
And maybe this is more of a plug, but if you're hearing all these great jobs and you're kind of new to WordPress, you're wondering how I can get started, I'm starting to teach classes at General Assembly. The first one is this coming Thursday on how to build a child theme. And then I'm going to follow that up in a couple of months on a 2-day weekend deep dive into how to build themes from scratch the WordPress way. My name is Tracy, by the way. I work for RP3 Agency, and I'm also one of the co-organizers of this meetup. So come talk to me if you are interested in these classes.
If you're hiring too, you might have noticed you're preaching to the choir. I think like 100% employment is probably in this room. So it goes without saying, because you do this every day, but you might want to post this in the discussion forum are probably the best, because I believe that's publicly accessible. Maybe you don't want that, but just something to think about, because I'm not sure there's any candidates here in the room tonight. 2 announcements. First is next event already has a date. That's May 28th. Chief will have a new location.
1800 Mass.
1800 Mass Ave.
Yep.
Right? So up the street a bit.
Yep.
Okay.
Right on the circle.
Right on the circle. And that will be posted in the meetup, of course. And we'll break the tradition. That will be on the 4th Tuesday next month. But every month after that, it will be on the 3rd Tuesday, henceforth, until we burn it up. Thank you so much again for hosting.
And the other announcement that I'd like to make is that Leland was just telling me that he's always looking for good speakers. And
absolutely,
he was mentioning that you don't have to get up here and talk for half an hour. If you've got a shorter presentation that you'd like to give, talk to Leland or to Casey or to and come and present. Don't be shy.
The cool thing about WordPress is it involves tons of hats for tons of different people. So you'll see SEO or hooks or system administration stuff. If you have any talents or interest in getting up and speaking, please communicate with us. Also, if you're interested in a specific type of talk, I think we sort of have this functionality on Meetup, but post like an idea for something that you might direly need. Maybe it's like graphic design work or branding or voice development, or I'm not really sure. But feel free to communicate with us and we can do both. Other major important announcements is WordPress Philly WordCamp is June, I had this, 13th and 14th, I think. It's the second weekend in June, in Philadelphia. Tickets are still available. It will probably sell out, but you probably got some time. And I think the speakers list is just announced. Aaron Jordan. I'm new here, so I've never really met the guy.
Formerly of WordPress DC.
Yeah,
He started this thing.
okay, yeah, he started all of WordPress and this meetup. But yeah, he'll be keynoting, and he does something. He works like Condé Nast or something important.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he'll be keynoting at Philly, and tickets are $20 as they are always. Okay, I think now I know some stand up.
Just making this shit up.
That's all I got. Anybody else have any other important things? Open mic night? No? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming out. We'll see you next month.
Man, you did better than next week. I don't know what you're talking about.
She did.
Yeah. I noticed that sometimes I have a hard time talking to people, but other times, like, the people who know SEO stuff, it's like,
Casey, you mentioned something that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, good job. And we have an API.
Social media.
Meetings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my boss was
so they help them with the meditation.
I thought it was great. Awesome. What a great idea. This is one just email me last week and said you should definitely and so she said, you have a group of plugins. And I didn't have any plugin. I'm actually a support person. So I would use that as a test.
What's Tumblr? So I was looking at a site, you know, so it's going to take here. So it's pretty interesting. It's like basically essential switching. I think the idea is all hundreds of then data to one way and transforms the information, send it out. It's smart. It's what concept. Where the science so we have the switching. Oversight, so that's another thing that I'm thinking, how can I make my service more accessible to anyway, we're talking. Lots of cards the same.